Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Touchline Talk. As usual, I'm joined by the one and only football writer and broadcaster, Dean Jones, to discuss all the latest news and goings on and to dissect the January transfer window. The transfer window has been and gone. Clubs up and down the country, some more than most, have improved their squads and reshaped their squads, Dean. But who have been the winners and losers of this January transfer window? There's only one place we can start. They were the main story of this window. Newcastle United, they were the busiest club in the window. 5 new signings in Kieran Trippier, Chris Wood, Bruno Guimaraes, Matt Targett and Dan Burn. But do you think they've done enough in the window to ensure they stay up?
They've given themselves a very good opportunity. I mean, a lot of those guys obviously have got the experience of playing in the Premier League, and that is ultimately what they needed right now. They knew coming into the window that they weren't going to get a lot of help from the big clubs in the league. Nobody really wanted to do any business with them, and that was proven. But they failed to get the Jesse Lingard deal done. But ultimately, it's all about small strides forward now for Newcastle. You know, there's all the ambition in the world here. They'd love to win the Premier League and win the Champions League, but first and foremost, they've got to stay in the Premier League. And these 5 signings give them a very good chance of doing that. And I know a lot of people raise their eyebrows and like, Dan Burn, that doesn't really fit in with the Kylian Mbappe stuff we were hearing a few months ago. But it's all about just improving what you've got right here, right now. And I think they've done that.
Yeah, they've rolled the dice, the new owners, in a bid to stay up. They've backed Eddie Howe. Big blow, though, to lose out in Jesse Lingard. He would have been added maybe a bit of that X factor to the team. And also, they missed out on bringing in another forward. Lots of links there was with Hugo Ekitike and also Zapata as well of Atalanta. So you'll be hoping that doesn't come back to haunt them if they do end up going down.
Yeah, I think the striker thing was the biggest disappointment of all, because Ekiteke, they had good vibes on that one for quite a long time, and I think that they thought that by deadline day at least they would get it done. It didn't happen. I mean, I'm not saying he was a guy they were relying on to turn around their season, but he had the blend of like youthfulness whereby he wasn't expecting to start, but when he got his opportunities, they thought he would make a real impact on the team, and that would have been good for them to have. And Jesse Lingard would obviously brought a bit of a star factor. Zapata, it all came about too late, really. I mean, Atalanta throughout the window were just pushing the price up and up, and in the end, Newcastle decided not to go down that route. But yeah, it's disappointing in that respect that they haven't got more goal power, I guess. That's the one thing they probably lack from that window. But in Bruno Guimaraes, they've got an unbelievable footballer there, and he'll set the tone of their play, and he'll add some star quality to this team along with those experienced guys that have come in.
Yeah, it gives them a real good chance, I think, of staying up now. Newcastle, 5 good signings. And as you said, I think the Premier League experience was key for Eddie Howe. He wanted players with that Premier League experience who could hit the ground running and try and improve this Newcastle squad straight away. But yeah, we're going to be talking about Newcastle probably every transfer window going forward now with the newfound wealth. So yeah, they've had a hard one this January. It's been difficult for the owners and the people in the recruitment teams there as well. But yeah, they're going to have to get used to it because Newcastle are going to be seen as one of the big boys going forward with the money they have. Moving on to another club who had a pretty frenetic deadline day was Everton. Frank Lampard was confirmed on deadline day as the replacement to Rafa Benitez as Everton's new manager. And they quickly backed him in the transfer market as well. A loan deal for Donny van de Beek from Manchester United, as well as a permanent move for Dele Alli from Tottenham, including the other signings they made earlier in the window with Patterson and Mikalenko, obviously Luca Dean going out. Everton made some real forays into this transfer market in January, but the big news is definitely the Dele Alli situation. Do you see Lampard as being the man who can get Dele Alli back to his best?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the one that is the real game changer and potentially can turn around everything for them. Anyone that's seen Dele recently or even over the past year really can see that he's not himself. He's not the same footballer, or even doesn't even seem to be the same personality on the pitch, to be honest with you. So he needs to get all of that back, refine himself, and who better than Frank Lampard, who literally made his name in the Premier League from playing a very similar style of football to Dele. You know, Lamps probably wasn't quite as skillful as some of the stuff that Dele's capable of. But in terms of the way he arrives in the box, the stuff that he could do to create goals and score goals, there's a lot of similarities. And we know that Lampard at Chelsea had this want and need to play with two number eights, play a 4-3-3, and there's two eights in there. He doesn't love the idea of playing a number 10. He feels that a typical 10 is a bit too static and can get in the way. So he likes eights that can progress and get into those positions just outside the box, just like he did as a player. And I think that Dele fit perfectly into that. And I think that from conversations they had, Dele was left in no doubt that if anybody can get him on the right track right now, it's Frank Lampard.
Yeah, we'd all love to see Dele Alli back to what he was a couple of years ago, when he was probably the most exciting young player in Europe with what he had done with Tottenham and with England. Just one bit of advice for Dele is probably to change his hair, get that red streak out before he goes, puts on that Everton blue shirt, because I don't think...
Get some blue in there.
Yeah, that's not going to go down too well with the Everton fans as well. But yeah, it's really a crossroads for Dele Alli, who does really now need to take this change of scenery at Everton and get his career back on track.
Yeah, but look, he's always managed to rise to the challenges that have been put in front of him when he does change clubs. So you think as a young teenager, or 16 or whatever he was, when he came on the scene at MK Dons, went straight into the first team. His second touch in professional football was a back heel. He had no problems at all, like settling into that. Quickly became a big name at MK Dons, earned his move to Tottenham, rose to the challenge there, was very quickly one of the first names on the team sheet, got into the England setup. Before you knew it, was one of the first names on the team sheet there. So we've seen him always elevate, and it's only over the past year or so that he's kind of plateaued, and he needs to be reinvigorated now. He needs a new challenge. And because of what we've seen in the past, of whenever he's changed clubs or got into a new team, I think that Everton could see the best of him again.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting watch at Goodison Park to see if Frank Lampard can get the best out of Dele Alli again. Also, a big opportunity for Donny van de Beek after a real disappointing 18-month spell at Manchester United. He's been talked about moving on for a while now, Dean. He's obviously chosen Everton over Crystal Palace. Again, do you see Van de Beek maybe finding his best form at Everton?
Yeah, I mean, again, another player with big motivation to prove everybody what he's capable of, and prove some people at Man United wrong, that he should have been in that team. He knows he should have been. He can't understand why they bought him. And now's the time to show everybody what he's capable of and that he can do it in the Premier League. I'm sure he's got every confidence in himself to do that. And Everton, in signing those two guys, I mean, they're two brilliant footballers. And if you'd have gone back 2 years and said you're signing Dele Alli and Donny van de Beek, you're like, what? That's unbelievable. Like, now you're almost playing it down because of the moment that both have been through in the past year. You're like, oh, okay, that could be interesting. But like 2 years ago, you'd have been like, that's sensational. So yeah, I think there's definitely reason for Everton to be hopeful and confident that things will upturn here. And Frank Lampard, obviously there's still be a few flaws in his coaching and his managing, but one thing is that he can manage personalities and individuals and get the best short term out of a group of players, and I think that we'll get that uptick from him.
Yeah, if he gets an arm around Dele Alli and Van de Beek and tells them how good they are, I'm sure he can get a tune out of them, and that's only going to help Everton. It is a gamble from Lampard taking this Everton job with everything that's going on around it. Do you think he's got enough within himself and the coaching staff to ensure they don't go down?
I think so. I mean, he's obviously surrounded himself by people that he knows well. I think it was very important to him having somebody, say like Joe Edwards that came with him, just to ensure. I know, like, typically you've expected Jody Morris to be alongside him maybe, but like that partnership's not there anymore. And but Frank's got confidence that the people he's got around him can do the job. And even by keeping Duncan Ferguson on for now, he's got somebody that knows how this team has got to this point. He knows the personalities within that dressing room. And for somebody like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who I'm told has a close relationship with Duncan Ferguson and bounces off him a lot, it's important to have him on board right now as well, because he's got to be weighing up his future. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he doesn't want to go through another bad spell with Everton, whereby you're struggling for results, and he's trying to find form and fitness again. So really important that he gets all of these things right, and I think it'll be very interesting to see how Lampard does.
Yeah, it's going to be a real interesting watch on the blue half of Merseyside, I think, over the next few months, to see how Lampard and these new signings get on. Moving to North London, Tottenham, they had a busy deadline day, bringing in 2 new faces and 4 players departing. Dejan Kuvalevski and Rodrigo Bentancur have come in from Juventus, while the likes of record signing Tanguy and Ndombele, Giovanni Lo Celso, Brian Hill, and also we had Dele Alli leaving as well, as we spoke about, to Everton. Major changes at Tottenham. We all know Antonio Conte probably wanted more than two signings, Dean, in this window if he was able to. Do you think these two signings and the other changes that have gone on are good enough to help Spurs get in that top four?
Yeah, I mean, they'll make a difference because both of these capable players are capable of going straight into the first team. And I think that was the most important thing for Tottenham, that they had to improve that starting 11. At least make sure that the guys that are in the team know they've got serious competition for their places in there. The deal for Adama Traore falling through was obviously a strange one because they were so far down the line with it, even terms agreed from what I was told and a contract in place. But obviously these things happen and it doesn't take a lot for somebody else to be offered you and off you go. And Adama not going to turn down Barcelona if they come knocking. But Kulusevski in particular is going to add unbelievable creativity to that front line and down the flanks. It'll be very interesting to see how he does. To be honest, I'm surprised that Juventus have let him out. Wasn't that long ago I was watching him at Juve thinking, this guy is unbelievable. Like, he's the real deal, and he certainly brings a new dynamic to what we're seeing here at Juve. But for whatever reason, that hasn't panned out the way I expected. And it'd be good to see him get back to that at Tottenham. And I'm sure Harry Kane will welcome some new life in the attack. And as for Bentancur, fantastic signing. Antonio Conte will love having somebody like him in the middle, somebody he can trust implicitly to carry out instructions, and a very, very good player technically.
Yeah, as you said, been a frustrating window in some aspects for Antonio Conte, missing out on Adama Traore. Also missed out on Luis Diaz from Porto when Liverpool hijacked that deal as well. How do you think Conte is going to be feeling right now with these two signings? Do you think he'll be happy with that? As you said, they improved first team straight away, but do you think they needed more, maybe a centre-back and possibly a right wing-back as well as maybe Luis Diaz?
Yeah, I mean, overall, Tottenham will just be relieved that they've managed to at least get two through the door. I mean, I know that Conte was, before these two deals were tied up, was extremely frustrated, wasn't happy that the way things were panning out. He couldn't really foresee how far he was supposed to push this team if they didn't bring in more players. They've got a couple, so we'll see how they get on between now and the end of the season. And we all know that Antonio Conte is not the sort of man that's going to hide his feelings at the end of the season if he feels the squad still isn't up to it. And I do think we'll get to a point where he makes it clear and demands what is needed in the summer for this squad to actually evolve, and then he'll want to see it happen. When he took the job, he was told that they would back him, and they were told that this team would turn into something new under his leadership. We've seen those players go out, which was key because he didn't want them around anymore. Thought it was important that they weren't there, so that was good. But yeah, it's all part of this transition now, and let's see if they can keep Antonio Conte happy. Because if they can't, he'll walk away. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, he doesn't normally last too long in management jobs. Antonio Conte is such a driven manager who wants success straight away. But he'll need his new signings to hit the ground running if they are to have any chance of finishing in the top four, because the top four fight looks like it's going to go right to the wire with so many teams involved. One team that is looking to be involved in that top four is Arsenal. The big story from them during this transfer window was the departure of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. He has left the club on a free transfer to Barcelona after falling out of favour with Mikel Arteta. Big savings on his wages, Dean, but this is a huge gamble by Arsenal to let him go with no replacement lined up, wouldn't you say?
It is in one sense, but I mean, he wasn't going to be playing, and it became clear that the breakdown in relations between him and Arteta was, so extreme that Arteta wasn't even considering how he could bring him back into the setup. And I think that once the board were 100% clear on that, they were like, we just got to get rid of him, whatever it takes, because we'd rather have no one than a guy that's potentially just going to rock the boat, upset the rest of the squad, see him moping around the training ground. He's training on his own. Who knows what he's going to say on social media or whatever. And in circumstances like that, it's a big decision because, he was their most valuable footballer. Like, he was the star, and wasn't that long ago that he was week after week scoring match-winning goals and putting in man-of-the-match performances. But, circumstances change. And now he's gone, and I think that most people will see the sense in that and will be relieved that at least he's gone now and that gap's opened up. Obviously, you would have liked to have seen somebody come in to add to that attack, but you see, maybe it's a chance for somebody like Nketiah to take his opportunity. We've seen that youngsters at Arsenal have been great at taking opportunities up to now. Saka, Smith Rowe, and these guys are a regular part of the team now. Maybe Nketiah will end up getting some games and has to do the same thing.
Yeah, obviously, there's more exits more than ins at Arsenal in this window. 5 first-team players leaving does leave the squad a bit thin, you would think, with I think 20 first-team players now in that squad. To get any injuries or anything like that, Dean, that could really hurt their chances of a top 4 finish, especially missing out on any potential transfers that they could have done in January. They missed out on Dusan Vlahovic. That was a long wasted transfer saga for them, with Vlahovic going to Juventus, which many people expected, probably from the outset. Also, there was links with Arthur at Juventus, Douglas Luiz, Alexander Isaac at Real Sociedad, but nothing came to fruition for Arsenal. So frustrating window for Arteta. And as I said, letting these other first-team players go, big gamble, because if they get injuries, they could find themselves in real trouble.
Yeah, I think if they had European football as well, then they probably would have seen it more important that they strengthen. But because they haven't got that, I think there's a stronger feeling that this squad can get through the rest of the season, and that Arteta knows the core of his team that he's going to be calling on, and that there's every reason to believe that as long as there's no more silly red cards, that most of them will be out there. That's easy.
I guarantee that.
Yeah, you definitely can't guarantee that. But as you say, that Vlahovic, it does seem like a waste of time. They thought they'd take a chance on it, basically, and ultimately the player was never really that interested, which we knew all along. But they thought they'd give it a go. Now we'll see where they actually turn their attention. As people got very excited when Alex Isak was in London, but I've been told throughout this that Isak has exactly the same reservations about Arsenal that Vlahovic did. So maybe it's the Calvert-Lewin transfer that has more legs in it than any other. And as we said already, let's see how it pans out for him under Frank Lampard at Everton, because very important to him, and Arsenal will have a close eye on that. And maybe in hindsight, Arsenal will look back on this if they did end up getting Calvert-Lewin and saying, "Oh, that's fine. Then we didn't sign in January. Like we've qualified for European football again, and now we've got Calvert-Lewin." That would be fine. But if they don't qualify for Europe and they don't get Calvert-Lewin, then it all starts all over again.
Yeah, back to square one. It'll be for Mikel Arteta and the recruitment team. Vital for Arsenal to get into the top 4, as you mentioned, Dean, to try and attract those top players again, the likes of Alexander Isak, Calvert-Lewins, etc., etc. So, yeah, it's going to be a crucial few months coming up for Arteta to try and get Arsenal in that top 4. Another team who's looking to get into that top 4 is West Ham United, who failed to bring in anyone in the January transfer window, Dean, which was a surprise. David Moyes admitted he would like a striker. He would have liked a centre-back as well in the transfer window. Do you see this as a missed opportunity by West Ham not to strengthen their squad, and a real body blow to their top 4 hopes with the same squad that they started the season with now?
Yeah, I just find it unbelievable that West Ham left everything so late, to be honest. Especially looking for a forward. That they needed somebody. They needed extra strength in that area of the field. We've seen that West Ham at their strongest, with their best 11, are almost as good as anybody in this league. But below that, you dig a bit deeper and they're going to struggle because they just haven't got the strength in depth. The players that are out there can't be expected to put in the same energy levels every single game. And you have seen a slight drop-off at times recently. So, yeah, it was a surprise to me they didn't do that. And then, the guys they go after, Darwin Núñez, Benfica made it pretty clear, as far as I understand, that there wasn't really a deal to be had in this window. Come back in the summer by all means, and there's talks to be had. But there and then it wasn't there. And Zapata they then turned to late on in the day, someone that's been on their radar and spoken about for weeks. But I don't think they'd really had any serious talks with Atalanta until deadline day.
Yeah.
And again, too late. Atalanta aren't going to sell one of their most important players with a few hours left of the window. It's just not going to happen. Again, Coletta Carr, I must have written about that transfer 15 times. And still, we're going to deadline day and they're like, "Oh, West Ham want to do a loan, but it's only going to happen if it's a permanent." It's like, come on, if you want it, get it. It's just frustrating. So I do think they've been left a little short. They're going to have to hope that those guys that they rely on are out there week after week if they're going to get into that top 4 or close to it.
Yeah, it's been 4th transfer window now, I think, since Sebastian Haller left. So they've needed a striker for those windows. still haven't brought one in. They've been relying on Mikel Antonio to score the goals, and that's the staggering thing. And I just can't imagine David Moyes will be too happy about that. The other interesting news out of West Ham was their ambitious bids for Rafinha and Calvin Phillips. What was the thinking behind this? Because there was absolutely no chance of these deals happening. Was it a ploy just to show that West Ham were being ambitious in the transfer market? I couldn't work it out.
I mean, from what I can gather, it's basically David Sullivan thinking, oh, let's go for this. And I mean, I kind of see the reasoning in it. Like, you know that Rafinha and Calvin Phillips' long-term future isn't tied up. You know that got an opportunity to make the top four. They're going to have the price. There is a price tag there that probably could have got them. And he was like, let's try our luck. Now, ultimately, £50 million for each was never going to be enough, because why would Leeds do that?
Yeah.
And you're not obviously going to spend £100 million on those players. So I kind of get why they would try their luck on it, because if you sign Rafinha for the second half of this season and going after that top four spot, then suddenly your chances are massively enhanced. But as you say, it was just so unlikely and such a waste of time. Yeah. So whoever it was, I mean, someone mentioned David Sullivan to me. I don't know that it definitely was him, but whoever's given that the green light and come up with the idea, I don't know, maybe they were just throwing a few ideas around and just picked up the phone and made the offer. It seems very strange. It doesn't fit in with anything that I'd been told before, which was they're going to do 2 loan deals. At the very most, they've got £30 million to spend. Yeah. Suddenly they're offering Leeds £100 million for 2 players. Very strange.
Yeah, can't knock their ambition, I suppose, but it looks like David Sullivan thought he was playing FIFA or something with these deals that he was looking to do. But yeah, West Ham again, it was a dry January for them. No ins for David Moyes. Also a dry January for Leeds. They ended the window as they started it with no major arrivals, and more importantly, no major departures either, as we talked about Rafinha and Calvin Phillips. Were you surprised Leeds didn't strengthen? They obviously were lucky midfielders. Brendan Aronson, the American international, they did bid for him, which was rejected by RB Salzburg. Also, Takumi Minamino was mentioned as a possible addition to improve their forward line as well, but that deal didn't happen either. Do you think Leeds and Marcelo Bielsa feel they've got enough in that squad to ensure they don't get dragged into this relegation fight?
I don't think they had that much to invest right now, to be honest. I think that's the bottom line. And Aronson was a guy that's been seen and viewed as somebody that fits into their system perfectly, and as a long-term addition to the squad would be ideal. So that's why they went after that one. And when it couldn't happen, they didn't really want to panic and sign somebody else instead, because they're still hopeful they can get a deal done for him in the summer, and they still believe that they will have enough to stay in the Premier League. I mean, to be honest with you, we'll find out pretty much over the next 4 games what level Leeds are actually at. Aston Villa and Everton are the next 2 games. You look at those, teams they should be pretty much on a par with, and certainly able to compete with. And then after that, you've got a massive game for Leeds at home to Man United, which, that's the fans' biggest game of the season, and they'll lift themselves for that and would give themselves a big lift if they could win it. And after that, they take on Tottenham. So if you just take a looking at those 4 games, let's see how they come through that, because I think that so much could be determined by it. If you win enough of those games, then you're absolutely fine. If you were to lose all 4, you're in big trouble, obviously. So let's see how that goes, but it's not going to take too long before we see just what Bielsa's made of. And look, let's see what Bielsa's thinking long-term here himself, because every year we're asked questions about his future, and I don't think we're that much clearer on what happens there either.
Yeah, obviously Leeds have seen the rivals down the wrong end of the table strengthen their squads with new signings. They haven't made any, but I'm like you, Dean. I think with Calvin Phillips back in the team, Patrick Bamford coming back to fitness and in that team, I think they'll have more than enough to stay up as well. So don't think there's any real need for Leeds fans to panic. But as you said, those next 4 games could be crucial for their Premier League survival. And then if they stay in the Premier League, they're probably going to have more questions asked about the futures of Rafinha and Calvin Phillips, with probably more than just West Ham coming in for those 2 key players in the summer transfer window. One team that we thought would need a lot of business in the January transfer window was Burnley, but they only made 1 signing, and it was a direct replacement for Chris Wood, with the Dutch international Wout Weghorst arriving from Wolfsburg. Looks decent piece of business. This team came for about 12 million. They got 25 million for Chris Wood, so they've made a profit in that one, but he's got to come in and score the goals to fire them to safety. Do you think Burnley have done enough to improve the squad and give Sean Dyche a real chance of staying up?
I think Weghorst is better than Chris Wood. So I'd say like to spend half the money on him that they got for Chris Wood is a great signing, because season after season, Weghorst has scored more goals at Wolfsburg than Chris Wood has at Burnley. So, yeah, I'd have every confidence that this guy fits perfectly into this system. I know that Burnley had scouts that had him on their radar when they're trying to use the analytics and draw up guys that would be a good fit for their team. Weghorst consistently coming out as one of the guys that would fit the mould and the style of play that they have. Anyone that sees him when he makes his debut, you'll be left in a little doubt of like his physicality and his presence. But he's a great goal scorer as well. Basically, gets a goal every other game when he was at Wolfsburg. I think he got 25 goals last season, 20 the year before that. He's got a really good goal scorer in return, this guy. And I genuinely think he's a better footballer than Chris Wood as well. So, yes, he hasn't got the Premier League experience, but Bundesliga, he's been playing against some good teams there. He's scored against Bayern Munich. He knows what he's doing. And I think that is a very good addition for Burnley. I'm not saying that he's going to be able to keep them up on his own. There still needs to be a big upturn and they have to make the most of their games in hand. But yeah, he's a good signing.
Yeah, good signing for Sean Dyche. As you said, he's got all the attributes to be a success in the Premier League as long as Burnley can feed him with the ammunition to score the goals. Missed out on a winger though, Burnley. They thought they were getting Orsic, the Croatian, to come in there, but weren't able to do that deal. Sean Dyche, we know he's worked miracles at Burnley throughout his time there already, but this is going to be probably the toughest ask, I think, to try and keep them up, you think, with everything that's going on. But probably the bonus that he did have, he managed to keep hold of James Tarkowski. Lots to talk about. He was going to leave, so he's vital that he stayed. That
is definitely vital, yeah. And I think, after the disappointment of losing Chris Wood in the manner that they did, like the idea of losing Tarkowski, I would have liked to have watched Sean Dyche's reaction to it if that would have happened, because he would not have been a happy man at all. And it would have wrecked basically his chances of staying up, I think, if Tarkowski had gone. But he's there. Sean Dyche will come up with some plans on how they're going to do this, and he'll believe in himself. Like, there's no doubt about that. He'll still think that he can do this and they can get out of this. Personally, I'm not so sure. I think that they are in a big fight now, especially because of the way the teams around them strengthen.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge fight to stay up in the Premier League this season, with a lot of the teams strengthening and maybe the likes of Burnley and Norwich not really adding enough numbers to their squad. Right, well, the transfer window's closed. Roll on the summer, Dean. There'll be more transfer business going on there as well. But yeah, that's us here for another week on Touchline Talk. We'll be back next week for all the latest news and gossip from the world of football.